the 28th day in the month of August 2024. Thank you everyone for joining us on this edition of AM Today. I am Sunday Kolawole. This morning we'll start again with a check on stories making the headlines in the national dailies. And the first port of call for us this morning is the Leadership newspaper. On the front page of the Leadership newspaper, you find this story leading. Diabetic patients panic as drug prices rise by 800%. Insulin rises to 26,000 naira from 3,000 naira. Glucometer 30,000 naira from 6,000 naira. I spend 200,000 naira monthly to manage my diabetes. That's according to a patient. You find details of the story, of course, on page 4 of the Leadership newspaper of this morning. You find a breakdown of how many people are diabetic in Nigeria. You find that statistics right on the front page. 11.2 million people living with diabetes in Nigeria. $4.5 billion spent on diabetes treatment yearly. That's a lot. How about herbal treatment? NNMDA offers hope of NAFDAC approved herbal treatment. Of course, that's what you find in there. Excess sugar. Coalition warns against consumption of sugar sweetened beverages. Find that also there. Of course, that seems to be a free medical consultation this morning as provided by that tabloid. You have to avoid sugar sweetened beverages for now. Of course, health, they say, is wealth. Find details there on page 4 of the Leadership newspaper of this morning. End killings, kidnapping, banditry now. Khan, Sultan, urge Tinubu. That's also on page 4 of the Leadership newspaper of this morning. And on page 7, 53 killed by floods in Northeast. That's on page 7 of the Leadership newspaper of this morning. And let me quickly check some more stories here. On the front page, page 7 still, alleged terrorism financing. Police squeeze a gyro today. Police squeeze a gyro today. That's on the allegation of terrorism financing. You find that on page 7 of the paper. Of course, still staying with page 7. NLD strike, consultants, nurses overwhelmed, patients stranded. That's the details you find coming from the health sector on page 7 of the Leadership newspaper of this morning. 14.6% of Nigerians abuse drugs. NDLA is saying that. So ask yourself, are you a part of that percentage? 14.6%. Maybe I should ask Zaid if he's a part of it. Good morning, Zaid. Glad to have you joining us.
Good morning, Sunday. No, I'm not a part.
Of course.
As simple as that.
So then, Zaid has answered for himself. Answer for yourself too. Are you a part? If you're a part, it's time to withdraw from that. It does nobody any good. Abusing drugs is counterproductive to your health. It's also a social vice. You shouldn't be involved in that.
And when the conversation around drug abuse also comes to fore, it's also important to note that it is not it's not only the illicit ones that can be abused, even the ones that are over the counter medications can also be abused. So if you are the type that a slight headache, your go-to meds is already waiting, a slight this, you have all of that consistently without regards to what the prescription should be, definitely you can also be part of the abusers of drugs.
I think it's also a question of the fact that we must always emphasize the fact that we almost say no to self-medication, because to a large extent self-medication also gives rise to abusing drugs. You're not a physician. You do not know the percentage of these and that. For instance, I'm not a medical person. They say insulin. Someone will tell you tetraca, whatever it is, the names they call. You don't know the configuration of those drugs. You don't know what is the state of your health. No test is conducted on you. You just feel, okay, because I'm having a headache, then the next thing is to go for this particular painkiller or all of those. You might be doing yourself more harm than good. So we must disabuse our minds from this. I like to target menace of self-medication. It will not do us any good. I think that's very important too. So don't be a part of the 14.6% of Nigerians who are abusing drugs. That's from the NDLEA there. And still talking health, Mpox, WHO appeals for funding. That's on page 7 of the leadership newspaper of this morning. On page 7 still, Biafra, FG engaging EU to extradite Simon Ekpa. That's according to the DHQ, that's the defense headquarters. Details of this and many other stories you find today in the leadership newspaper. That does it there.
From the leadership newspaper, let's check the Daily Sun. The Daily Sun, Wednesday, August 28 is here. And of course, it's leading with this Army Chief. Soldiers can't be used to serve some interest. That's in the Daily Sun newspaper front page. You find that story on page 28 of the Daily Sun. You also find another one here in the front page still. FG names 23 managers for investment funds. The writers of that committee to design strategies for investment of $10 billion global fund. Insecurity, FG seeks Japan others help. You also find writers Sultan can raise concerns over worsening situation. And here is more for you. Tinubu aims to strengthen Nigeria-China ties during September visits, that's according to the presidency, to meet Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping, sign MOUs. Ahead of the elections in Edo State.
I hope the MOUs will also address the issues of security. It's now assuming a more dangerous dimension. You find the Christian Association of Nigeria expressing worries over the incessant killings, bloodshed and bloodletting you find around. You find the Sultan, that's the head of the Islamic affairs in Nigeria, also expressing concerns, worries over this incessant killings and all these bloodletting you find around. It's getting worrisome. Of course, it's a renewed hope that's been promised to Nigerians. The renewed hope should not be shattered by bloodletting and incessant killings, especially in the northern arena, also now creeping into the southern arena. We must do something about it. So when we are globetrotting, China today, Iraq tomorrow, wherever it is, let all our collaborations, let all our memoranda of understanding, let them have one thing or the other to do with addressing the critical national problem that we're facing. I think that's the essence of leadership. The Constitution is clear that the security and welfare of the citizens shall be the priority of government. So that must also be the priority of government. You cannot invest in a country where there's insecurity. So there must be a way to first foster security among the people to ensure that other areas also get a boost.
All right, the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria and the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry are also reacting to a report earlier put out by the Nigeria Bureau of Statistics. It says, MAN, LCCI, faults NBS 3.19% Q2 GDP growth report, says impact on felt by Nigerians. IMF projects 5% economic growth. Find that also in the Daily Sun. And finally, in the Daily Sun this morning, First Lady, Gov wives sign agreement to combat GBV. That's on page 29. You find that place of the agreement in the scheme of things. But let's see, gender-based violence, one should preach for it. Of course, we must all join hands to combat it.
I'm more interested in the coming days to get to understand the nitty-gritty of that agreement. Between the First Lady and Governor's wives to end gender-based violence. Will it be having to also do with mobilization, orientation, and sensitization of the women folk? Will it also have to do with mobilization, sensitization, orientation, or reorientation of the men folk, recalibration of the mindset of the men folk, so that we're not having this patriarchal configuration of a society that's most times breeding these cases of gender-based violence. So it's important to really understand what exactly they want to do in the agreement. Is it a case of really serving the people, or a case of saying, look, let's collaborate, it's a pet project to rake in money? No, it should be addressing the critical societal issue of gender-based violence towards really ensuring harmony between the male and the female folks.
And don't you forget, when gender-based violence is mentioned, it's not just about the female. So that word is deliberate. Gender. It's either male or female.
Tell me something, Zaid. I think I'm liking the angle you're coming from.
No, just to put it out there, that gender-based violence is a collective issue when it comes to our society.
Yeah, it's not just women that get
violated. No,
even men.
Yes.
So, but they will say men don't cry.
Oof. Okay. Men do not cry.
Well, I think that's so important in the scheme of conversation on this matter. Men should cry if they need to cry. Because on a more serious note, when
men are crying now. When you look at the realities.
Yes. When you find all of these problems heaping up on the man and all of that, then they will say, no, now you're a man. Come on, chest it like a man. No. If you cannot chest it, don't chest it. Let it out so that you could have quick healing. I think that's very important too. So and that doesn't also downplay the fact that women are vulnerable in this matter.
Yeah.
So we're not taking that away from the conversation. Let's check the Daily Times newspaper this morning. It's leading with the concern of many Nigerians, those at the echelon of leadership and also those at the lower rung of the ladder. Insecurity. Kaduna residents flee to urban centers as abductions rise in hinterlands. IGP urges citizens collaboration. That's what you find on page 2 of the Daily Times newspaper of this morning. Of course, we talked about the issue of the abuse of drugs by Nigerians. 14.6% hooked on drugs. That's according to NDLEA. That's how it's reported there. The NAFDAC is clearing misconception about use of saccharin in bread production. That's on page 4. And on page 19, former reps member repays 3.1 million naira student loan to Nelfund after 39 years. I think that would be an interesting read to understand what exactly the issue is all about. You can refund anything, even if you took somebody's jacket.
Sunday, when are you refund?
You can refund that also. Of course, it's
really
important. Anything could be refunded. Then I do not know how much loan you took while in school.
I was about asking you.
I didn't take any loan.
Okay.
But by God's grace,
did my producer take a loan?
I think Omotoso has a lot to tell us as far as that is concerned. Maybe in the coming days we'll have to quiz him.
Or we'll get the news that he has returned the loan to perhaps Nelfund. Say, Nigeria, thank you so much. But of course, perhaps we'll start seeing more persons who have, over the years also grown to become eminent Nigerians who have had to benefit from government resources, government interventions to come around and say, look, we want to also support development and progress.
I think not so many Nigerians. In fact, you see, many of these people, if not much more among them, they benefited from scholarships, that they will tell you, I will lower free education and all of that. Now you are made. How much are you giving back? You see, the truth remains that you cannot sleep in more than one room at a time. So building around like you're a bird, casting your nets everywhere, and then also globetrotting like no man's business, engaging in frivolities and superfluity of naughtiness, going back and forth, doing things that make no sense, will not really be auguring well. You should go ahead and also look at how you could contribute to the fund to serve as the pool where others could also benefit from, and that could all help in national development. So I hope one day Zaid will also go there and then drop his widow's mites. Of course, I will also be doing that at a time when I feel that yes, God has blessed me. Because it's a collective responsibility, we must do that. Let's contribute to. I didn't hear that.
Okay.
So I think we should just continue. Still taking stories from the Daily Times. Let's still check if there are still more stories there. Of course, there is one. Police confirms arrest of 97 Shiites following killing of officers in Abuja. Of course, back and forth still on that matter. Shiites are saying police killed their members. Police are saying No, the Shiites that went into unprovoked attacks and all of that. You find details on the front page of the Daily Times newspaper this morning, of course, spreading to page 4 of the paper. That does it there. Let's move on.
Well, of course, the picture of the firemen doing a yeoman's job right there in Lagos State. Also in the Daily Times, they're putting out fire at a 2-story residential building at Ebute Metta, Lagos. So kudos to everybody who is doing great things to help society. Away from the Daily Times newspaper, let's check the Vanguard newspaper for today. The Vanguard, agony in Southeast as kidnappers lay siege to communities. Tales of horror from Lupanta Umeochi area, Lilu Osimogu axis in Ihiala, now called Sambisa of the Southeast. Gun battles rage almost daily in Okigwe. Oil businesses, oil bunkerers trigger insecurity in Ogota area. We also find gunmen launch attacks from forest in Orsu. You find a list of the communities going on, and reactions from the state government. We are tackling kidnapping, say state governments, others, but there is a graphical representation of what perhaps you find in a kidnapper's den. You find, there are victims, the abducted persons, tied, blindfolded, sometimes gun pointed at them. But one that has caught my attention in that graphical representation is a picture of a vehicle somewhere in that representation. And you also begin to, imagine, can we not put all of these things together? Do we even have how to track, aside from tracking mobile phones, vehicles? Do we have the wherewithal? Do we need to start building that database, that repository that you can take a look into? That, okay, this vehicle that was used in this case, what's the number? Who was it registered to? Was it a stolen one? And all of that. Put all of the pieces together. But we hope that those who are in captivity will get to regain the freedom, and security agencies will also promise that, yes, we're working.
You see, we cannot overflog this issue because it has to do with life, and in this case, the precious life of Nigerians. And we must also understand that, yes, security agencies say they're doing a whole lot. Of course, we acknowledge the fact that they're doing a lot. How much of support are they getting from government? It's important to clarify. How much of sustained efforts are they also putting into the fight against insecurity? We were almost just saying it to Uhuru at a point where it seems it's a jubilation too early because of the resurgence of insurgency, because of the recent increase in kidnappings especially. And the Southeast is becoming a place where you now find insecurity beclouding the little efforts or the so-called progress being made in economic advantage or economic advancement. So it's worrisome. Government has to up its game in dealing with this menace. It's very important.
We're hoping that the situation will come around, and that takes us to also the conversation, because currently the NBA are holding a conference in Lagos. The governor of Ondo State, Lucky Aiyedatiwa, was at that conference, attended a leadership series held in honor of former governor, late Oluwarotimi Akeredolu, and part of what the proposal at that event was a state police solution to insecurity in Nigeria. That's a question, and the governor did mention what the impact with the foundation, the contribution of late former governor Oluwarotimi Akeredolu, particularly to the formation of Amotekun Corps, and of course what the government is also doing to strengthen the security architecture in Ondo State. And at that event also pledged to continue to sustain the efforts to ensure that there's safety, security of lives and property. So we can only hope and also wish them all the best in that task. There's you don't get to sleep over insecurity. A slight miscalculation of some sort, or a slight dull moment could also give an opportunity for criminals to infiltrate. But here it's working. We're hoping that, just like the governor has also said, more will be done in terms of security. Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Femi Falana, also gave commendation to those states, looking at the operationalization of Amotekun and how the success has been over the years. If it can work here, it can also work elsewhere. So the conversation continues.
I'm glad you've answered the question, because I'm not a security expert, but then I'm also not oblivious of the happenings around. When I saw the theme of that conversation is state police the solution to Nigeria's security challenges, the first thing that came to my mind was a yes. Because the truth is, if it worked in Ondo State, it could work anywhere, like you said. And what is more, the nomenclature or the operationalization of the concepts is immaterial. What is important is implementation. Now, trying to run away from the concept, state police, the authorities came up with something they call community policing. And that was why they were coming with, let me remember now, is it community, I can't remember the rank now in the Nigerian police, if you remember.
The PCRC?
No, that's not the PCRC. Okay. That there was a time that some young elements were recruited in the
constabulary.
Police. Yes, community constabularies. And then the question is, to what extent has that been successful? Now, you call state governors chief security officers of their states, and they have no say over the security architecture, the command structure of the policing of their states. So what exactly are they chief security over? And so there must be a way to really look at tinkering with the concept of our policing structure, because it's important that, look, for instance, in Ondo State, you find Amotekun operatives predominantly being indigenous of the state. For instance, those operating in Owa they are indigenous of Owa, born, bred and brought up in Owa, so they know the in and out of that area. Those in Akure will speak fluent Akure to you, and so when they see somebody trying to do any untoward thing, they know this one my barrier and all of those things. You understand? So when we understand the concept of territorial protection, these are people who have stake in the territorial definition and geographical delineation of that area. They will not want to jeopardize it. Unlike somebody who is from, for instance, another state, you are shadowing that person with the responsibility of protecting another hemisphere. The person will look at it that
the language of insecurity.
You understand? So it's important to really tinker with that and look at how to secure our land. You see, this is becoming a big problem. You know, that is this, my final take on this, there's this story. The king in a particular place, they came to meet him and said, look, tragedy has struck in that place, trouble has gone. They come back and say, trouble has struck in another place, trouble has gone. And then one day, trouble struck right in his own family, and they can say, your child, this and that happened. And they say, trouble has come. So let's not wait until trouble comes. Let's deal with the problem now, so that we'll be able to sleep with our two eyes closed.
Also important to know that we all have a part or a role to play. The place of language, as you mentioned, is also quite interesting.
If you see something, say something.
Yeah. So let's wrap up with the headlines in the front page of the Vanguard newspaper quickly. Flooding, death toll rises to 170, injured 2,000, displaced 205,000. That's people that have been displaced by flooding. And of course, the scary thing about this is the fact that, you know, when you hear the conversation, the rainy season is yet to peak, dams that needed to also cause problem are yet to be open, and we already have these spades in some parts of the country. And you begin to wonder, imagine what is coming, what more could be coming.
You know, it's not funny in Jigawa currently. It's not funny in some other states currently, and that's why we need to also come to that point in this conversation where we look at who exactly is government. You know, at every point in time we say government is government. Interesting that we say something, say something. Now at this point we are saying that if you see something, do something. You're waiting for the rain to fall so that you could carry your refuse and then dump inside the waterway and all of that. At the end of the day, it will come back and haunt you. And so while it is still happening in some places, I would pray that there will be a solution to the problem. If it's not yet happening at your home place, please do everything to prevent its occurrence, because you could only see the beginning of the fire. You can never determine to what extent that fire will go in destroying lives and property. So in this case, water, they say, is even deadlier than fire sometimes, because if fire is raging, you use water to quench it, or we use to quench the raging wrath of Okay, let's go sporting, Zahid. Let's go sporting.
From the world of sports, interestingly, you find the conversation continuing following the announcement of the
Super Eagles
coach of the Super Eagles. In the front page of the Punch Sports Extra, Bruno who? That's the question. And I answer, Bruno Labbadia.
Yes, Bruno Labbadia, yes.
Nigerians query Labbadia choice for Eagles job. You find the German tactician. His picture is in the front page of the Punch Sport Extra, and that's the picture you get to see, or the image, or the figure you get to see when Nigeria team, the Super Eagles, file out. And that's the man you see on the touchline. You call him the shot. So he has 2 games ahead. That's the qualifiers. Let's see how that would also go for the new man in charge. But you want to know what the queries have been from some Nigerians, you check this Punch Sport Extra. You also find here Ekong Aina Awoli return in Rwanda. Table tennis draws as Paralympics begin. Szczęsny quits football. You also find UEFA to honor CR7 with special award. Again, the race continues. Who will get Osimhen? Chelsea, PSG still interested in Osimhen. And of course here, tributes for Nigeria's first Olympic medalist, Maegu. He died a few days ago, but of course that's when man was made history in Nigeria. Chelsea launched late Tony Bede, and Danjuma Shaw Falconets will shine in Colombia. You find more in the Punch Sport Extra for today.
Alright, with that we place a wrap on a check on stories making headlines in the national dailies. Of course, we've been able to pick stories from some major newspapers today. Check details of those stories and many more in the national dailies today. We thank you for being a part of it. We'll be coming back soon to talk about things that have to do with our mental health and stability at a time like this when people complain about economic difficulties. We'll be right back, everyone. Please stay with us.
Leadership is not package where it is I give you the package. Leadership comes from what you do, how you live, what have you acquired in training, record that. And what I'm saying is that the young people must strive. They shouldn't expect it to be a parcel delivered by itself to them. Know that no comes for nothing. You work it.
Let me assure you, our mothers, that our administration is not relenting in its efforts at making life better for our people in the state. We shall continue to pursue programs and policies to relieve parents of the burden of parenthood towards our children. This year, the state government had paid West African Examination Council fees for our children in public secondary schools. We have plans for bursary and scholarships, the details of which are being worked out. The state government has set up Agriculture and Food Security Committee that is doing a good job. Our commitment to ensuring that no family goes to bed hungry in Ondo State is total.
Yes, I am in charge here today, but we are running a constitutional democracy. I will appeal to you to summon the governors. Some of them, call them up. I'm doing my best to improve the revenue of the country and giving them their due. But they must equally be sympathetic to the populace, and they must consider the need of the local people. People are in the local community. That is where they reside. That is where they feed. That is where they garden. That is where they cook. That's where they farm. If the local government are not free, and leaders don't hang on to the number. We have 774 local government. It's just a number. Is it effective? Is it reaching the real people? Who is being held accountable for this money? Maybe we should look and recalibrate what version that was good 4 years ago might not be good today. And when we want the votes, we go to the locals. When we get the votes, we move to Abuja. I think we have to collectively join hands. I need for you to get us a committee of people that can really embark on the campaign for our value to change.
Welcome back, everyone. Of course, before we went on that break, I did tell you that we're speaking on an issue that has to do with what concerns everyone in the Nigerian state currently, perhaps even in the global space. We're talking mental health and stability amidst economic downturn. And we've been joined by an advocate of mental health and one who has also been doing a lot in the aspect of encouraging mental stability in moments of adversities. We're being joined by Princess Temidayo Ololaimo. Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us on Outlook.
Thanks.
I'd like to start on a personal note. You are a trained professional accountant, and then you're delving into mental health. What exactly is spurring your interest in mental health?
Yeah. I think before this time, I discovered that myself, even though as a graduate at that time that I worked for many years, as of the time I was talking about, that was in 2012, when I heard about depression, that it's a medical condition and that it's a mental health, issue that needs to be treated with medications, I was like, wow, depression. I do pray about depression. I would say I pray against the spirit of depression, just like that. But I never knew
It's not a prayer matter.
It's a medical condition. So when I got to know about it, I reflected over all the symptoms, being an inquisitive mind. I asked a lot of questions, and when I look at it, so many people around me have suffered this same condition in the past, which we never diagnosed. So at that point, I made up my mind that I was going to do something about it. So that's why today you see a professional accountant who is now, an advocate of mental health. I have certification in mental health. I have a diploma in mental health. And I'm currently running an MSc in psychology with the Atlantic International.
So you are a woman of many parts, not just going into accounting. But now let's go to the crux of the matter. Now, you cannot prevent anyone from overthinking. You cannot also determine how someone responds to certain situations at every point in time. But the question is, how can one navigate economic quagmire and still have a balanced mental state of health?
Thank you. It's so beautiful that I have the rare privilege of combining these two, professional accountancy and mental health advocacy. It is something that is of immense help to me at this time, because my background as a professional accountant, I'm a finance expert, and I know that one thing that you need to do at any time, see whether there is economic issue or not, is that you should plan. Now, when you have a plan for yourself as an individual, plan in finance terms is a budget. Because a budget is a financial plan of action. Okay. If you have a budget, it helps you to maintain financial discipline. That's number one. Number two is that as somebody that is advocating mental health, awareness, I'll need to say this, that whatever circumstance it is that you're facing at a particular point in time, it might not necessarily be the same that others are facing. Even though this is a global issue, so many people are being faced in different ways. Mm-hmm. So the scenarios, there's something they call scenario analysis. In those days when we were in school as accountants, we were exposed to a little bit of statistics, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. The kind of foundation we're given is that you should be able to fit into any organization, because finance is the lifeblood of all organizations. If I find myself in an oil and gas industry, I should be able to cope. If I find myself in hospital setting, I should be able to cope. So we have all these trainings. And so when you have a scenario at hand, you should be able to analyze it. Now, if, for example, I'm a civil servant and I know that at this time my salaries might not be able to take care of my needs. One, because the inflation rate is so high. Looking at the trend of inflation, the instinct is that I should diversify.
Economic diversity.
Yes, sir. Okay. I should diversify. Because if I have a plan and the plan is not working, I should begin to look for a solution. So I said diversify. Diversification does not necessarily mean I start a big company. It could be that I start a small farm. Maybe there's a little portion of land around you. Even if you are not the rightful owner, you could take permission from people, make use of their portion of land, plant subsistence, crops. Start from there. That is one, diversification. The second one is that when you have a plan like that, a budget, it has two legs. It has your revenue side, it has your expenditure side. Now, if your revenue is not matching your expenditure, also there's this thing we call debt. The area of my experience as a debt manager comes in there. Before now, so many people have this erroneous belief that debt is a serious issue. I don't want to go into debt. I don't want to be a debtor.
Oh, so it's not a negative
thing? Debt is an asset.
Debt is an asset?
Yes, sir.
You shouldn't lose your sleep over it?
At all. Now, that is where I want to take us through when we're talking about mental health issues. You don't just go borrow. Why are you borrowing? I mentioned that when you have two legs of your plan and it is not balancing, and you are borrowing to balance it, you should have the specifics. Because what will lead you to debt is that your expenditure side is more than your revenue side. Now, what in that expenditure side can you tie the borrowing to? Okay? As an individual, if you are going to borrow, are you borrowing to invest? Or you are borrowing to consume? For any individual or organization, when you borrow to consume, it's a red flag. But when you borrow to invest, you are sure that one day there will be inflow from that same debt. That is where your debt becomes an asset. Now, when you are preparing,
so that's borrowing to invest.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
When you are preparing any financial statements, we have this side of the financial statement that we call, the asset side. We call one the liability side in a layman language.
Okay.
Now, the asset side, one of the things that we also take care of is financed by the source of capital. One of the major sources of capital is debt to any quick organization in the whole world. I can make boast to tell you that the most influential people, the most successful people, they all carry debt. But why are they carrying it is the question mark. So don't lose your sleep over debt by planning before you go into debt. Don't just jump into it. Don't say, they are taking a loan in my office, everybody is taking it out, I want to take it. No. Why are you taking?
I'm interested in that red flag which you mentioned, because for those who might be watching at this time, say many persons are already holding that flag. They are already waving that banner. And the question will now be, when you look at the current economic situation, you also find people on that side of the divide who they just want to go by on the daily to find something to eat. So invariably, they're already with that flag. How can that turning point begin?
Yeah, thank you. Somebody that is already, carrying the burden. That's the language I will use. It's already carrying the burden of debt. Do you know what? When a person dies of car accident, the person will be transported in another vehicle. It's so difficult to say this, but I must be frank with you. Sometimes you have to move deeper into your debt to get out of it. You are in a pit, you want to get out of it. Sometimes you have to go deeper.
How do you recognize the need to also get out of it? Because that's also one issue. A lot of thinking, you're bothered, you're down, and you just can't really think through of what it's necessary for you to do, that step for you to take. How do we also overcome that obstacle?
Thank you. Now, I'll go more into the psychology aspect here. Now, if you are in a particular situation, sometimes too, it has eaten so deep into you that you can't help yourself. And that's where I advocate the need to seek professional help. Unfortunately, the level of awareness is still very low here. Even though I said I discovered this in 2012, but I can assure you that even now, 2024, so many people have not gotten to know that there's something they call mental health. And for your mental health, to be in the right shape, sometimes you need a professional to talk to. We have psychiatrists, we have psychologists, we call them clinical psychologists. Those clinical psychologists, their duty is to talk you out of that problem. They're going to sit down with you, they carry something like this that I'm carrying, they're asking you questions, or they are carrying a laptop, they are carrying an iPad, they are asking you questions, they are putting your issues down, and from that problem they are bringing out a solution for you. Here it is still very scarce. We are working on it in Here for the Depressed Foundation. We'll come to that later. That we will have a big resource center here in Akure where somebody can meet with a professional without necessarily going to a psychiatric hospital because of the stigma around that. So many people will not want to visit a psychiatric hospital, but trust me, we all need it. Whether you are a president, whether you are a cleaner, whether you are the CEO of this organization, whether you are just somebody that carries files, you need to be mentally okay. It is at that point that you will be able to impact the community very well. When we say mental health, I'm sorry I'm taking you too far into it, but then we need to know. Mental health is saying that at any particular point in time, you are able to cope with the challenges of that time. And one major challenge of this time is the economic downturn. So for us as individuals, we should be able to cope, and not just cope, but cope well.
How?
We should cope well. And now, how to cope? Is
Well, you've talked about diversification, going into subsistence farming. Some will tell you, well, the environment in my place, everywhere is concreted and all of these. Apart from subsistence farming, what else can one do to diversify and make ends meet in this difficult time? God bless you, sir.
We are all interested in technology. In fact, every average Nigerian is one way or the other using technology. I'm here sitting, I have 2 mobile phones on me already. It means that I'm investing so much in technology. Why are you not also turning it into investments? These are some of the things that we're lacking. You know, sometimes I was discussing with somebody and I said, it is unfortunate that the aspect of technology that is being tapped into in most parts of Africa is the negative aspect. Technology comes with its positive and negative sides. There are a lot that we could do with a mobile phone that will earn you so much. Now, you know, with the advent of remote working, you can sit down in your house and be working for somebody in America. I just told you I'm a student of Atlantic International University. I'm not going there. My course is online. My tutor speaks to me. We talk, we discuss issues, we solve things. If I'm having a program, if I want them to join me, they join me. Like on Sunday, I was taking an award. They were watching me live from America. They wanted to know what I'm doing because I'm having a course in psychology. And they want to know how well I'm coping in the community, how well I'm impacting people. You know, that one cannot be scored in the classroom.
So use of tech to also diversify.
To drive whatever you're doing.
Especially you're also going into remote jobs and all of that. Now, let's talk, let's bring this conversation to the doorstep of the people. Now, an average person, you're selling pepper, you're a vulcanizer and all of that. There's no one that's insulated from the economic downturn, the effect of sin in this contemporary time. Now, you're saying that debt is not a problem, we should not see it as a negative thing. How do the people in this category cope with economic challenges?
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy you're talking about market people. You're talking about all these artisans.
Informal sector.
In the informal sector. You know, even the government has issues with capturing that particular sector properly. For example, when you're talking about taxation now, to capture the informal sector has been a major challenge, you know, for even the national government and sub-national governments. You know, when I say sub-national, I mean states and local governments. It's not easy to capture. The same way, it is not easy for the government to capture them. It has an impact on them. Because for any sector of the economy to be properly catered for, we need to also have a database. I don't know if you have, you know, sort of it in that direction. The governor of a state should be able to, on his dashboard, know that this is the number of organizers in the state. It starts from there. So we have a whole lot of challenges around that. That of data is what I've mentioned. The other aspect is that, you know, the level of skill, you know, yes, some of them, they think they are unskilled labor, but the truth is that it is a skill that you should learn. We are playing down already on these technical schools. Do you know that a larger sector of the economy should go to those schools? When you see these guys that come from these neighboring countries, they fix your tiles for you, they do this POP ceiling for you, it is much more, you know, perfect. And when you ask them, they didn't go to any wall of university. So I've also delved into that to look at, what is the challenge with this category of people that we just mentioned? It is that we have not been able to structure that sector, and we need to do that. That's one solution. Number two is that they do borrow too. I mentioned borrowing. They borrow a lot. If you hear so much about this, what's this? They are common borrowing.
They have a lot. They have a lot. Let's just leave their names.
So they do a lot of borrowing, and you discover that this idea of not planning has affected so many of them. Must you buy every Ashwebi that comes your way? I mean, I'm a professional. You might say it's easy for me to do so, but I can tell you for free that we get more temptation from Ashwebi than they do. But I should be able to draw a line of demarcation and say, this is not what I want to do at the moment. My plan of action for this year will not accommodate this and this. So they need to also, have personal discipline that I mentioned earlier. But when you have a plan, that is when you can factor in financial discipline. So they need it too. I'm looking for a day when I will have the opportunity to have a program around the market area to talk to people because of my own training as an accountant. I tried this some years back, it's a long time now. I even tried to prepare a kind of book that they can be using for their daily reports, because one of that challenge they have is that if you want to access some loans, they will ask you some basic questions. They do all those things, but they don't have a record. For them, they don't think it's necessary, but it is.
Our conversation is around the mental health and, of course, what it's also doing as a result of the economic situation at this time. From your findings, from your interaction, how much more is this issue pressing, say, as of today, in our community?
You mean the issue of mental health now?
Yes.
Great. It will shock you to know, sir, that 4 out of every 5 people are battling mental health challenges. Now, when we say mental health issues, we have an array of them. You can say anxiety, and of course I know you are familiar with anxiety. You might not have the depth of the knowledge of anxiety. Anxiety is common to both male and female, young and old, professional, unskilled people, all of us. Because this downturn we are talking about is a trigger of anxiety. Somebody is waking up this morning and is thinking, how do I survive this day? Maybe he has kids. They are on holiday, they eat more.
That's another reality.
It's anxiety that is already coming. Okay? Another one is they call it bipolar disorder. One moment you are up, another moment you are down. You will agree with me that if you know so much about it, it's something that is very common. But unfortunately, because of stigma, people don't want to seek help. Fear that they will be stigmatized, because in this part of the world, somebody is waiting to say, she be psychiatric, somebody is waiting. Sometimes it could even be a family member that is waiting to say that to you. But I am advocating that for every one of us that is listening to me this morning, make it a point of duty to tell one person that can tell one person that we are all open to mental health issues. So don't stigmatize.
And it's not a spiritual attack.
No way. It is not. The mistake people make is that we arrogate so many things to attacks. These are realities. The economic downturn is not even peculiar to Nigeria. And I can tell you for free, in the developed world, they don't wait until people break down. That is why you think they are okay. They already have structured, plans for taking care of people. You won't see somebody that has schizophrenia walking on the road of UK. You won't see in the US. But because we have not, gotten to that level, we are still moving. You might be walking along the street and then you see somebody that stripped himself naked, and then you say, I want to see. My brother, when something is wrong with this head, every other part of the body is not okay. There's this common saying that people can go without their hands. Of course, we can improvise. This morning I saw a publication that is saying that if there's anybody that needs free prosthetics for the leg, that he wants to give him a battle. But I've not heard a place where they can exchange this head, give you another head. So if there's no place where they can give you another one, you have to take good care of it. The Bible says we should guide our hearts, because out of it proceeds all the issues of life.
You've mentioned anxiety and bipolar
disorder.
There are so many others. Anyway.
And there are so many others. So perhaps a checklist for anyone who says, we're having this conversation around mental health this morning on our channel, and I really want to gauge if I'm even at that realm. I'm having a challenge of some sort with my mental capability and, of course, the healthiness of my mental state. What are some of the questions to ask oneself to be able to come to that conclusion, or to that almost concluding that, yes, I think I need to check myself?
Now, I was looking at the possibility of doing a community poll this morning. I'll come to your question. That community poll that I wanted to pull out is that, do you have depression? Is it that you are diagnosed? You understand? I want to see how people have been able to, come to a level of assessing themselves. And it goes to that your question, saying that before you can come to a conclusion that, okay, I have depression, I have anxiety disorder, I have schizophrenia, I have, bipolar disorder, a lot of them like that. It means that, one, you need to sit down with a professional. You can't conclude it in your room. Okay? You need to see a professional, and like I mentioned earlier, we have array of professionals in that field. But more importantly is that a psychiatric doctor is the one that can recommend any medication.
I think we should get something clear. How do I know I am going on the verge of mental instability? For instance, maybe I do not have much money in my hands, and then I check my purse, I check my account, no money, and I'm, oh God, how do I get money? Does that mean I'm depressed? Okay. How do I know I'm depressed? How do I know I'm into
now depression is beyond just being sad. Okay? It's beyond just, anxiety is beyond just being worried for a moment. Okay? Now, when we are saying that somebody is depressed, it means that, that's seeming sadness, inability to do things you used to do. It transcends a week, 2 weeks, you are counting days, it's running into months. You discover that, to get up in the morning and say, I want to do this, that you used to do before. Things that you used to do before become so difficult. In fact, maybe somebody that is the outgoing type doesn't want to go out again. Something is wrong. Somebody that talks, that flows with people, suddenly withdraws. But when you are talking from now till tomorrow, the person is not contributing. Something is wrong. But that is not conclusive. Like I said, you will need to see a professional. There are some points where you have to also take some tests to be sure that, the chemicals in the body. I'm not a medical practitioner, and I will not want to, go into all of that. But I'm saying that the definition of mental health says you should be able to cope well with the challenges that comes at the moment. If you are not coping well, because life is about challenges. Even our Lord Jesus Christ told us in the Bible that in this world we are going to face a lot of trials and tribulations. So it's not uncommon that you have a particular challenge, maybe at work, maybe in church, maybe in your community, maybe in your family. They are common. But when you discover that you cannot cope with those challenges, I am saying this morning that you cry out for help.
Is being stressed also part of what you say, not being able to cope?
Oh, thank you. Now, when we say stress is of two types. We have eustress, we have distress. If it is eustress, it brings out the best in you. There's this poem that, gingers me a lot. It talks about the fact that those big men you see on top there, they attain those heights by being awake while everybody is sleeping. And jokingly I say something that if everybody is awake, who will allow you to climb? They will not drag you down so that they can climb. So stress, when it is, directed towards development, progressive development, doesn't make you fall sick. Especially when you have the resources around. Forget about money. Sometimes it's not even money. You need some resources when you are stressing yourself. One, you should be able to have an atmosphere that will be conducive for you to carry out that assignment. If you are in a workplace that tasks you, that workplace, do you have your work tools? It's important. Okay? For example, this morning I'm here on this television. If you don't have all these your gadgets and you're just struggling with it, I mean, it's something that will bring about distress. That's what I'm going to. So if it is distress, forget it. It's not good. But if it is ill stress, that is the good stress, you are perfect.
Now let's take a look at something. You know, human beings generally, we're gregarious in nature. We must interact with others, and that's how society is also structured. You also have people who mean well for you. They want to support you. They want you to attain your aim and objectives in life. Some are just on the opposite side. They want to pull you down. They want to mess with your head and all of that. How can one deal with such a problem such that you are able to overcome the challenge of dealing with people who will not see the good in you but want to mess with your head per time? How do you deal with that?
Thank you. I call them, you know, in the journey of life, you have proponents, people that want to help you to achieve. But there are also these detractors. They don't want you to move. You know, I jokingly mentioned that if everybody is awake, you want to climb. I mean, yes, some people might have the mindset of saying, let's push him so that I can quickly get up there, because we know that if he can make it will too rub on the community. But I can say it, you know, confidently that if you have 10 people in that room, most likely 7 people will be thinking, why must he be you? So, this is Africa especially. You can't do anything in isolation in Africa. You must carry people along. That is our setting. That's our culture. But I have this to say, sir, that as much as you need to carry people along, if it is going to stress you mentally, please dissociate.
So there's also advantage in dissociating?
Yes, sir. I had a session with some women, I think sometimes in July, and we were talking about women and mental health. And somebody asked the question. He said, if I belong to an organization and I discover that what they're doing there is stressing my mental health, what should I do? I told her, I said, well, you have to start from analyzing the situation. What actually transpired? What caused that stress from all that happened? That issue that caused the stress, is it from me? You have to look inward first. If it is from you, go and amend. Now, if it is from somebody else in that same group, you try to make attempts to see if the person can shift grounds. Okay? And that's what the Bible recommends. If there's an issue between you and your brother, you have to go to that brother. Talk about it. If you cannot resolve it, you can involve people that are higher than you. But trust me, after taking all of those steps, if you know that remaining in that group will make you to lose your sleep, it will make you not to be able to be efficient and cope well with life, I advise that you relocate. God told Abraham, he said, leave your kinsmen.
All right, so the conversation continues, but of course, perhaps we'll talk about what you mentioned earlier as to what would benefit the people of Akure and people of Ondo State going forward. But when you look at, because this they say it could be short time, it could be long time, the effects, how do you think individuals can achieve that mental health goals going forward?
Yeah, I'm happy to say to all of us that one, we should know that it is a must to achieve. You must achieve the goal of being mentally okay, because it is the #1 prerequisite for all of the things, all of the good things that you have to do in life. It is when you are mentally okay that you can proceed to whatever plans that you have in life, to pursue them and to achieve them. So it is a must, just like saying it is a command, that you must ensure that your mental health is intact. That's number one. Number two is that if you have now agreed that your mental health is intact, then you have to find out to know more about mental health. And that's why what we do basically in here for the Depressed Foundation is to sensitize the people. We want to educate the masses. You know, there is a place of knowledge in anything that we do in life. The Bible says, my people perish. Why? For lack of knowledge. So you must know. When you know, you will now be able to take steps to achieve your goals. So I'm saying that you should be decisive about it. That's core. I must be mentally okay. I'm saying that too, you must acquire knowledge about mental health. I'm not saying you should become a psychiatric doctor. That's not what I'm saying. But you should have basic knowledge of mental health to be able to know when you need help. And when you need help, please seek help.
I'm 21 years old, or perhaps I'm 18 years old, and I'm a big question about quite a number of things. Family, friends say, you don't do this, you should be doing this. And I'm getting tired of all of the questions. I'm getting worried, I'm getting stressed. What do you think could be the way out in that kind of a scenario? Again, on the other side, I'm 50, I'm 60. I think I'm just in a way worn out. Am I too old to take some certain step to maybe reverse? When I look back at all of the years I've spent, I think I've made some very, very costly mistakes. Am I too old to retrace them? Am I too spent to find that redirection?
Thank you.
Two scenarios here.
Let me
a young
start
person
from,
and someone who's old.
Yeah, let me start from the mental health of children and teenagers. You see, around that question, there is always this bigger question. It is parenting. Parenting is always the bigger question around the mental health of children and teenagers. How do I mean? Children, most of the times, don't take decisions for themselves. Somebody who is a parent or guardian is taking that decision on their behalf. And we must come to realize that parenting has gone beyond what it used to be. As a parent listening this morning, you must upgrade your knowledge so that you are not the one pushing your child into mental health conditions. There is a place of types of parents. I will not be able to go into the details. We have authoritative parents, we have permissive parents, we have a lot of them. And whatever type of parents that you are will rub on the kids you are bringing up. And that is where the issue of mental health comes from. And again, there are so many experiences, like you mentioned, that when you have them when you are younger, you are formed in a negative way. And that's what we call trauma. Childhood trauma is a major issue when it comes to mental health. If you have childhood trauma, when you grow up, you begin to battle with a lot of issues. In fact, relating with people becomes difficult. I will mention one particular trauma that is common. It is rape or near rape experience. Sometimes it might not be actual rape, it might be near rape experience. It lives with that person almost all of the lifetime. And so already somebody that is carrying that kind of trauma inside, maybe if it is a female, the person is now in an enclosed place and he sees a male. Whatever you are saying is not what the person is processing. The person is already processing, hope this one will not try it on me again. That child needs the support of a professional.
Let's look at another category. I was glad that it was going to the demographics of age. How about a lady is 30 and then there's this prayer on her. Your mates are getting married. When are you going to get married? Oh, young mama, you're 35, you're 36, you're 38. Want to get married? You need to do this. Time is going and all of that. How do we deal with that?
Thank you. That is what we call, sometimes we can say peer prayer or family prayer, whatever name we want to give to it. I wrote a book sometimes last year. I think I gave you a couple when we met, talking about the journey to destiny. Do you know that that journey is a personal journey? The only one person that is so important on that journey, that is the ultimate important personality, is the Almighty God. Every other person, they play roles and they go. Your mother will play role, go. Your father will play role, go. Today I'm an orphan. So whatever role my father has played, he has played and he has done his part. My mother has done her best, she has gone. I will live with the consequence of any of my decisions. Whether she made it for me or I made it myself. And so, I'm saying that if you're a 21-year-old, you're a 30-year-old, whatever age it is, somebody is praying you into marriage, you must go to your own drawing board. Have you resolved to marry?
It should not be by the prayer of anyone.
Not by prayer.
Before we let you go on the final note now, let's come back to the crux of the issue. That's economic downturn. Things are not the way they used to be, or things are not the way people expect them to be. Summarily, what should be our disposition to be able to maintain sane mind at a time like this?
Thank you, sir. I mentioned the issue of guarding our hearts. The center of every issue of life is our heart. This one is coming, whether physical, spiritual, emotional, whatever, our heart is concerned. So I want to say that we should stay our mind at this time. I am a Christian, so I will recommend from the angle of a child of God. The Bible told us in the book of Matthew chapter 6, it said we should not take worry about tomorrow. We should not bother ourselves about tomorrow. That's not to say that we shouldn't plan, but we shouldn't allow our minds to be troubled. We shouldn't be bothered to the point that we will now go into these mental health issues that we're talking about. That's one. Number two is that we should plan. There is a situation at hand, we want a solution. What is our plan of action? And when we make those plans, we should be disciplined to carry out our plans. And when we need support, don't be ashamed to ask for